conversation. My name is Anna. Let's give it up for my friends here that joined me for this conversation. And this subject is going to be culture. So we're going to start off with the first question. So weed was criminalized back in 1937 after the Mexican Revolution War. This was because they felt that the drug made blacks and Mexicans crazy and dangerous. Not surprising. So I want to know, now that it's being decriminalized, how do you all feel about weed today, and how do you think it will be regulated by the government in the future?
All right, so I think today, right now, a lot of people, I think they're more comfortable with it. I think we're finding out more of like the health reasons around it, as far as like knowing that, you know, it helps with people with cancer. We're finding out more information about like sleeping, as far as like increasing the sleeping habits, and we're just finding like the benefits of it. So I think it'll be a thing where it'll become more normalized like alcohol was. As far as it being regulated, that's where I get concerned, because when the pharmaceuticals come in and, you know, they take over, you start seeing more side effects, you start seeing more like manufacturing of things to make sure that they make the taxes on it. And for that part, I think that's like my main concern.
I believe it, for the history of this country, it's always been both black and white, and or money. So as, you know, Timmy, the little white kid, starts to grow up and he starts smoking marijuana, that's when the government and people start saying, wait a second, we don't want our, you know, our white kids to be going to jail. Maybe we should make this legal, and let's do a little more research to see what kind of effects it has on people. But when it's more of a, I'm gonna jump back just off topic just for a second. For example, weapons. Assault weapons, we had an assault weapon ban in like the early 90s and the 70s, and it wasn't because, you know, white people had weapons, it was because of the Black Panther movement. So when black people have weapons, or when black people are doing something, it's like, let's criminalize that. But when, you know, Timmy, or, you know, the white culture or whatever starts getting involved with it, then it's like, wait a second, let's reevaluate. And so I think that's where we are now with marijuana and where it goes as far as being legalized.
I think along with when regulations come state by state and locally, we need to make sure that people who have been affected by the war on drugs, those neighborhoods, wherever the revenue is coming from marijuana, it needs to go directly to those neighborhoods. And then also we need to make sure that people, their records are expunged. That's my main priority when it comes to the regulations, and making sure that when a bill is put on the table, it just doesn't say for, you know, all of these white folks who are coming in and want to make all this money off of it, that's great, you're lobbying for this, but what are you doing to make sure that we mitigate the war on drugs that has ravaged black communities?
Reparations.
Right, it's a form of it.
I actually think weed, but not only weed, but all drugs should be legalized, including cocaine and heroin. Studies show, like in Portugal, that they actually legalized all drugs. They decriminalized it, and it showed that when they made everything legal, people tend to use it less. Not only that, studies show when you legalize all drugs, you're going to take away from the cartels, you're going to put them out of business, you're going to reduce a lot of violence coming into the country. So I think there's a lot of benefits of legalizing all drugs. I mean, you want to legalize it, not legalize it, but like decriminalize it in a sense, you know. So
yeah, where it's like make it known for what is good and the usage, but not try to make it like something popular or something.
And you want to put stuff in place to help people, you know, essentially get off those heavy drugs, and essentially we want to criminalize people for being on drugs. It's kind of a recycle problem, you know, like these people go right into the system and come right back out, go right back into it. So
I think it's for a reason. America has always done that. Like weed is, or marijuana is considered as a class 1 drug, which is, that's in the same class as heroin, or not even methamphetamines, heroin, Valium, it's a couple other ones. It's the hard drugs that weed is in class. They do that to lock us up because of it. Because once they can classify that, they lock us up. They get the tax-paying dollars because they have to go to the state for them being in jail. So me personally, I'm a marijuana connoisseur, but I'm impartial about the legalization of it because it's America. Like right now with the vaping, vaping is really big in the weed culture because it's convenient. right now, the black market, or I think it's the pharma companies too, but they've been tainted. They've already been, I think, 19 deaths this month so far across the world, or in America, due to people basically dirty vapes, that comes from big companies cutting corners and putting things in it. Just like on the block when you first started hearing about crack, it was pure. It was strictly baking soda and cocaine. Now is whatever. You put whatever in to make your money back, and that's what America is built on. So me personally, I don't know.
Wait. Femi, you was next.
Oh, I was just gonna try to shift the topic away from like the whole legality of it and talk about like the social aspect of it, in the sense that we are definitely seeing a time where we are like basically trying to get our voices heard as far as how we as a community feel about marijuana and how it influences our day-to-day, because you'll see these ridiculous articles or you'll see these like ridiculous videos and it's like, oh, driving while high, and they'll have like the little goggles on, and most people who have done it before, like that's not how it goes. Or like they'll be talking about, wake and bake, or just like doing it in, right, or like the whole stigma of like, oh, if you smoke pot, you're lazy and blah, blah, blah. But I personally know some of the most functional potheads ever. Like they smoke and they're very productive and they're good at what they do, and they have full-time jobs and they're creative. So it's just a very interesting time with marijuana right now, because like in the media it's cool for like the West Coast, white moms to embrace it and not be judged for it or seen in a negative light about it. But anytime it comes to black people, black culture, and marijuana, it's always some type of negative connotation, always some type of negative narrative, and I don't know, it's just it's annoying.
I want to also talk about educating ourselves on weed strains and what types of weed work for which type of people, to see like, some people might inhale too much. So I say that from experience. And then it scares you away from wanting to do it again. So what do you guys think about getting informed and educated on what types of weed? There's dabs, there's edibles, there's all kinds of forms of it.
You're only going to be able to educate if it's normalized and legalized in some type of capacity, because I just came from the West Coast, and their dispensaries, the way that they operate, it's very educational. It's very like, they break it down, like, well, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to have a productive day? Are you trying to chill today? Like, are you an anxious person? Like, they give you all of that education, whereas to over here, it's just like sell, or gift. And like, you're not really being educated on what you're smoking.
On like, what's the type of right dosage? I think that's kind of what you're talking about, like, because you don't want to take something like an edible or a cookie or something, and you have the whole brownie when you only really need
the corner. The corner.
But I feel like that's hard with weed, just like alcohol.
Yeah.
For me, I can take one shot, and one shot for you can be completely
But
different.
the more you know,
the more you know. But I feel like with your dosage in weed, the only way to really find out is to do it. Everybody I feel that smoked for their first time never necessarily had a good first time experience. You find how I used to tell DJ all the time, you gotta find your cloud. Sometimes you just gotta find it. You get too high, you have to find that right cloud, and then you know your limits, just with alcohol or anything else, because you can go to a dispensary and the person can say, hey, go home, take this. You want to go to sleep, and that could be way too strong for you because they're going off their tolerance.
I also seen a video on Netflix. It was like the Mind Explained, and they were talking about marijuana nowadays and how like at this point it's kind of even hard to say that if you would know the difference between the strains. I know you were talking about like educating yourself as far as that, and they were saying like, it's become so like unnatural
Yeah.
that you won't even, it might say that it's indica or sativa, but it might not really be
hybrid.
that.
It's so much
Yeah,
hybrid.
it's so much hybrid that
There's
nothing
no
is
such
pure.
thing. There's no
Nothing
such
is
thing as a pure sativa or indica. Everything is a hybrid.
Right.
Because everything is necessarily bred. If you keep on breeding dogs, the lineage of that is going to water down.
Right. So it's like only so much you can do.
All right, so we're going to move on to the next question. So I'm sure all of you have been following the news with Amber Guyger being sentenced for her murder of both W.A.N.G. She was given 10 years, and a lot of us saw videos of the judge and I think the bailiff as well, comforting her, and even both W.A.N.G's brother telling her that he forgave her and saying that he wished he didn't have to go to jail. And you know, a lot of people had an issue with this because they feel that when the shoe is on the other foot for Black people, the same sentiment isn't there. So I want to know, are Black people too forgiving?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
It's literally in our history. Like I literally on someone's Instagram, and there were it was some professor from Bowie. I'm not going to say his name because I don't remember, but he was teaching a class about the history of like religion, slavery, how slaves were like taught to be forgiving towards their masters, how, you know, it benefited slave masters to not have slaves know how to read because they couldn't read everything in the Bible about vengeance and justice and blah, blah, blah. Everything was always about forgiveness and this and that. So it's literally in our history, so absolutely.
But why do you think that is, though? As far as the forgiveness part?
Because it was easier to manipulate us and control us at that point. Because could you imagine knowing what we knew back then, we would be enraged. And I mean, at the end of the day, they were outnumbered. Keeping us ignorant and forgiving and all the things that they kept us back then was how they had power over us and control over that entire situation. So that's why it benefited them to do that. And it's continued because in like, you know, religion, forgiveness is constantly preached. And I mean, that's just what it is. And it's just convenient that it's always towards us when it comes to us forgiving, I guess, like white sins. But where was that forgiveness during 9/11? Where is that forgiveness during any other situation where it's not a white sin, basically?
Like my question would be, is the brother and the mother forgiving her, is that Black people forgiving her though? Is that everybody forgiving her just because, like, I think that's like group think. You said,
So
I would say no, because I'd say, for me personally, not as a Black culture, I feel like
yeah, because my
forgiveness
timeline
is
was like,
overrated.
forget that lady. Like, I don't care if she's hugging her. So
No.
I don't think the Black culture forgave her, but I saw that was a story that everybody was saying that Black people are so forgiving, and the media is trying to.
Well,
Go ahead.
I think that family in particular, like they're West Indian. My family's West Indian, so I kind of relate. They're heavy Christians. They, you know, you're taught to forgive no matter what. Now, I'm Americanized now, so my thought about it was, you know, if I was up on that stand, you know, if it was a white judge in that stand, they wouldn't even blink an eyelash. They'd be like, you're sentenced to 20 years to life.
Yes,
That's
right,
it.
yes,
Bye-bye.
yep,
5 minutes,
yes.
you're gone.
Right.
Now, you know, the kid is granted to feel any type of way he wants to feel. Now, for that judge to come up there and hug that person like that, I think, first off, it's unprofessional.
Very.
and the
Very
bailiff-
unprofessional.
Very.
the
And
bailiff-
disrespectful to the family.
Not to
Yeah.
mention, she had racist texts on her phone from like way back when. You'd be doing that super inappropriate, and I mean, that's,
Even the 911 call that
Bible
they
too,
called,
yeah.
and she just sounded, again, granted, anyone in that situation is going to be freaked out, but she sounded more concerned about her job than homeboy's life. And that's the biggest problem
Yes.
that people had, because it's like you could have been doing so much more, but you're thinking about your job, you're thinking about yourself.
Yeah, because your first instinct wasn't even to help him. Your first instinct was to say, oh, you know, I had the wrong apartment. You know, that was your first thing, not trying to save his life or anything. So,
Shakana, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think what you were saying about that when it came to her job, she was thinking about her job. I also think that in these positions, we are often so tokenized to the point it's like, oh my goodness, like I'm the judge that's going to convict this white lady. Like with a lot of Black people, there hasn't been historical movements like that where we have made, you know, such major and impactful and powerful decisions. It's like almost everything is like imposter syndrome, like, sis, you got to be a judge. You got there. So
Do you
when you
think she feels
use the
pressure?
judge, do your job. Yes, I definitely feel like she felt pressure and probably didn't necessarily know what the impact or the implications would be, because not only is she going against, you know, the judge, the whole judicial system or whatnot, but she has black people coming against her now, then she has white people coming against her now, then she has lawyers and judges. It's like a whole level.
She failed the standards that her own colleagues would even have.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
crazy.
Yes, and it's crazy. Yes, but I think it goes back to not understanding or knowing sometimes when you get in those positions to just, you have a seat at the table for a reason, and that's why you should exercise your right as a judge. And that's how I feel. Do your job. She did her job, and she now felt guilty and giving HUDs. No, sis need to go to jail. She need to go to jail.
I don't think as a people we are too forgiving. I think that the amount of compassion that we do have is what sets us apart from a lot of people around the world. That we have that capacity to forgive. I think the whole thing that made me angry, not so much that the family or the judge or that, individual people forgave the officer. It was that, where is that same compassion when it is somebody of color on the other side?
Yep. Meek Mill retweeted someone saying like something along the lines of, "Oh, did you get hugged by your judge after you got sentenced?" And he was like, "Hell no!" Like, we never get that compassion. And it's like, why is that?
That's what's so enraging.
Yes.
It's not that we can have the compassion. It's just that where is that
For us.
when it's us? Where's that when we have too much weed on us? Or we got into a fight or something, or we were speeding. Yeah, we were young. We killed somebody, and we get 25 to life.
Like, yes.
Meek Mill got 4 years for doing a wheelie in New York or something. And this lady
You know
got
what I'm saying? Like, it's
10 years for
she's
breaking
getting
into his
5.
home and killing.
She's getting 5 years. Let's be
Right,
honest.
absolutely.
And that's what's so frustrating, and that's what angers me. It took me a while, a few days after the case, to kind of come to terms with why am I so pissed off? Am I pissed because we forgave her, or individuals forgave her? No, I'm pissed because we don't get that same compassion. We don't get that same treatment, and that's what eats at me under my skin.
Also, I think for me too, knowing the time for forgiveness, because I think I'm Christian myself, and I firmly believe in forgiveness. But when people were acting crazy in the temple, Jesus was flipping tables. Okay, right? Oh, I'm gonna hand you a hug. No, these tables getting flipped. So we have to understand the time when we've been conditioned so much. And I say this: I used to work for social services, and I administered benefits, and a lot of my clients would be like, "I'm not like those people. I'm not like them. I'm just here for a certain situation." Who are those people? You get what I'm saying? We are conditioned to play the good Negro. Where it's like, I'm the one who
had a job.
I have a job, something went wrong. That's what happens with everyone. We've been conditioned in our mind, and that's why I made a post about it or whatever. I was so upset that even, the young man, both them Gene, he was damn near perfect and still was killed. So playing a good Negro, what does that mean?
Nothing.
Exactly.
Absolutely
And
nothing.
having forgiveness, of course, his family has to forgive, because that's the only way you don't have those seeds within your heart. So I understand that. But also, we can forgive but still get justice at the same time.
Didn't they try to say there was like weed in his system or something like that? And I was like, wait, we're not gonna do this. We're not gonna do this.
Speaking of justice, though, his neighbor got shot. I think they found out.
Yes.
I wonder if he's gonna get justice. It's looking like a conspiracy theorist.
It happened right in front of our face, though. Like, you can't
was
tell us
retaliation
that
for a
it's
homicide,
not.
but that had nothing to do with it, with that case.
Now, I don't want to start a conspiracy theorist, but
I know.
So are you saying
that's what I
it could be some of the police
information?
department involved with that. It could be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, are you saying like new information came out saying that his death had nothing to do with?
Yeah, they're saying that he was involved in a homicide last year.
Wow.
That was that is a retaliation due to that.
A year
that-
later.
Pretty convenient. It's pretty convenient.
So
It's convenient
the timing
timing.
Directly
is-
after
Convenient timing.
the jury?
That's
Well,
convenient.
I'm sorry.
They did give us a partner number
Okay.
on the stand.
Okay, that's a stretch.
Wow.
That's convenient timing. That's all I say.
Yeah.
We'll see if anyone gets prosecuted as well. Yeah, and then what were they saying, that she could do a repeal, and then he wouldn't be able to.
Testify.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
Which is probably the angle that they're gonna go for.
All right. Well, thank you guys again for joining me for this conversation. I appreciate you all, and make sure that you follow the Glass Dojo, UTOR Music, and of course Cognac, Cupcakes,